Okay. So, Matot Masai, right? So we have two parshiot this Shabbat. And actually we are catching up with Israel because for a few months we were one behind because I think it was maybe in Pesach.
Pesach?
I think it was from Pesach or something.
You're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Second day of Pesach.
Yeah. So they had we had Yom Tov and they had regular Shabbat, I think, and that's it. And this is the difference. But anyway, so Matot Masai. So we're doing Netivot Shalom Sefer Bamidbar Parashat Matot, and page Kuf Ayin Aleph Harvey if you want to use. So the topic is שלא הקדימו תפילין של ראש לתפילין של יד, that they didn't put the tefillin of the head before the tefillin of the hand, right? So we're talking about the war with Midian. יחלצו מאתכם אנשים לצבא, right? Like bring people or take people from you to the army. And Rashi explained, righteous people, אנשים צדיקים. In Midrash Shir HaShirim, it says, איתה שכל 12,000, right? So were 1,000 people from each tribe. There were 1,000 to fight, 1,000 to daven. Basically, 12,000 soldiers went to fight with Midian. And not even one single of them put the tefillin of head before the hand. And Rashi said they are tzaddikim. By the way, we're all doing the same, right? None of us put the tefillin of head before the tefillin of yad, right? So why is particularly this thing, which is obviously we're already doing it by default, right? And Moshe was praising them because if one of them would put, even one of them from the 12,000, Moshe would not praise them, and they will not actually return from the war with no casualties. And that's why it says, so they were most righteous. And we need to explain, right? Like one precisely, they took only to fight the war, only these people that fulfill and the kimu mitzvat tefillin in all the dikdukim, in all the small little tiny nuances. We didn't hear about it in the war with Sichon and Og, and not even Amalek, right? Okay, but you can say Amalek was before getting the Torah, now we got the Torah, so now we have the tefillin. So, but about the other war, why only Midian? ויש לומר, we can say, והנה כל היהדות של יהודית ליד מצוות תפילין. It said, the entire Judaism of a Jew depending on the mitzvah of tefillin. ועד שימינו מניחם נקרא קרקפתא דלא מנח תפילין. And a person, a Jew that never put tefillin, he have a nickname, like a skull that never had a tefillin. And the explanation, the essence of it, or this special thing, שיש במצוות תפילין יותר מכל השאר מצוות. So why the mitzvah of tefillin is very, very important, more significant for others. Why? כי אצל היהודי ישנם שני המבצרים העיקריים. So a Jew had two fortresses, right? Fortress, מבצר, the brain and the heart. And they are controlling the body. בידם השלטון של כל הגוף ועל כל רמ"ח האיברים, right? And all the רמ"ח האיברים. By the way, like a side note, but it's still related to the last parsha, something very nice that I read about Zimri ben Salu, right? Zimri. So in the letter of Zimri, there is the otiyot remez. So what Zimri wanted to do, he wanted to take the girls of Midian and be with them. So he was like mevatel one mitzvah, which is not to go with the goya. So what Pinchas did, he took a romach, spear, but the romach is only written over there with no vav, is resh mem chet, right? Ramach evarim, right? So we have shasa gidim, ramach evarim, whoever call mitzvot, aseh mitzvat lo taseh. So it is if like Zimri wanted to remove one mitzvah, but Pinchas was keeping that mitzvah and he bring the ramach. Anyway, so we have two fortresses, the brain and the heart, and they are the ruler on the entire body and all the ramach ha'ivarim, right? 248 parts. And our servanty, slavery of a Jew is to conquer, to le'achniya shnei inanim elu, the moach and the lev, to Hashem. And by doing that, he's like crowning Hashem on all his body. And this is the tefillin, right? So before we put the tefillin, we said, Yeshem, Yechud, Kud, Shabrichu, right? Ushchinte, right? Eneni Mukhan, Lekem Mitzvat Aseh. I'm ready to make the mitzvah of Aseh, right? Prior to put them, and that Hashem commanded us to put them on the hand, which is to slave the heart, right? Because we need to put them on that muscle, and when you put the arm, actually the tefillin should touch your chest, and you should have a kavana about that. We are enslaving our heart, right, to Hashem, and also the one on the head, right, to enslave our thought to Hashem in the brain, in the sechel, and then all my senses and my strengths, all of them will be enslaved to His avodah yitbarach shmo by doing the mitzvot of tefillin. That's why it's so important. So he's like, Moser Yehudi lekadosh baruch hu et halev v'hamoach she'ikar hashilton al atzmo, right? Because, you know, we have an expression in Israel, everything starts from the brain and the entire body suffer. It's all in our brain. We're running simulation, imagination, and thought about things that never happened, never will happen, never maybe happened in the past, and we're thinking about people and what they will tell us and what we will reply to them, what we say, and he said, and that said, and everything is in the brain, right? We're running like a whole movie in the brain, yet with our imagination. So no, so we said here with the mitzvah of the tefillin, we are enslaving it to Hashem, and then we will be ruling on our body. And this is the main essence of the mitzvah tefillin, enslave the desire of his heart and the thought of his heart, because the heart is the emotional part, right? כולל את כל הרצוניות והתשוקות של האדם, אשר יהודי צריך לשעבדם, we need to enslave that, and the soul, which is in the brain, with the rest of the senses, so they will all be enslaved to Hashem yitbarach shmo. And by doing that, then the body will come after that, all the gashmiut, the physical body, and therefore, you will have to put first the tefillin of yad, because we cannot, it says here, כיוון שאי אפשר לשעבד הנשמה שבמוחי עם שאר חושיי וכוחותיי, because we cannot enslave the soul in the brain, which is in the brain, with the rest of the senses and the strength, if we are not enslaving the body itself, like the desire and the thought from the heart part. Because when we are actually damaging the heart, then the brain becomes metumtam, sealed, opaque, and we cannot get clarity. Only after we enslave the desires and the thought of the heart, then we can enslave the opinion, the ashkafot, and the soul. And according to what we just learned, ועל פי זה מבואר, למה במלחמת מדיין היו צריכים לצדיקים כאלו, שלא הקדימו תפילין של ראש לתפילין של יד? Why they makpid on putting the tefillin of the hand first, and why they were so praised about that, and why they were needed to have the revenge in Midian. כיוון שבמלחמת מדיין היו צריכים ללחם לקליפת בלעם, right? So we know that we have Balak and Bilam, and Bilam was like equivalent, chas v'chalila, not on the same level, but from the negative level, it was equivalent to Moshe, because everything Hashem created, He created for them as well, not only for us. So Bilam was considered to be the prophet, Bilam considered to be the spiritual leader, etc. And Moshe was bechinat da'at, and Bilam was also da'at, right? And it says in the pasuk, Bilam said, Yodea da'at elyon, that he knows Hashem will. So, and therefore, the Midian was the war against the da'at, the klipat Bilam, the shell of Bilam. And he wanted to have a blemish, he wanted to damage the desire and the thought of our hearts, of Israel, that we should not enslave it to Hashem, right? As it says, shekodem haya, before that it was vayachel am liznot el bot Moav, that first Bilam wanted to metame them with the desire and the lust of the heart, and only after that to do avodah zarah. It's samed dam lebal peor, which is the blemish and the damage in the emunah, in the faith, and in the clarity of the faith in the brain. And of course, it will damage the soul as well. But the first gam, the first sin, the first damage was prostitution. And in order for fixing that blemish, which is start with the desire, we have to make sure that these people always put the tefillin of hand before the tefillin of the head, which means enslave their heart to Hashem. And only these people were capable of breaking the shell, the strength of the Klippa of Bilam, which was not in the other war. The other war was simply fight Sichon, fight Og. They were mighty king, they had nation, they were got in our way, and we need to remove them. So it was a simple conventional war. It was not a spiritual war.
Kiara,
Yeah.
you were saying that the Moach, which is the Rosh, the Tefillin Shel Rosh, is the sort of like the initiator for everything, right? Of the Ta'ava.
First is the heart. And it's not me saying it, I'm just reading it from Netivot Shalom. And he said that, yes, that first you need to enslave, you need to conquer the desire and the thought that's coming from the heart.
So shouldn't you put the Rosh first?
No, the heart. The hand is close to the heart. This is the first thing.
Oh, okay, I got you now. Okay, I see.
How do you say heart in English?
Heart.
Oh, it's the same. So first the heart, which is close to that's like the close to the body. And only after you're conquering or enslaving the heart with the desire, then you're actually capable to do it to the head, to the moach. Same thing with kosher food, right? Kosher food goes into the body. Somebody doesn't eat kosher food and become a tumtam, right? Which is opaque, is sealed, like is not, doesn't have a clarity. So first is the physical thing, and first is the heart, because the heart is responsible for many physical desires that we have, right? So that's the first thing, and only after that the head. And this is the explanation what we said after we are wrapping the tefillin, right? Anachat tefillin, it says, והרסתיך לי באמונה, והרסתיך לי בצדק ומשפט, בחסר ורחמים, וידעת את השם, right? צריך באמונה. And it says, וידעת את השם, and you will know Hashem. וידעת, right? את השם, it's מידת הדעת, right? The wisdom. Like, ויקל משה את עדת בני ישראל, it's the da'at of Israel, that Moshe unite them. So the tefillin, after we wrap it, like that's concluding the putting the tefillin, that's like finishing the action, the mitzvah. This is actually now we can know Hashem, because knowing is including, it says da'at hu kolel shel chokhma mocha ubina liba, which means it's including the wisdom of the brain. Actually, it's, you can say the intellect of the brain and the wisdom of the heart, right? Like David HaMelech, or I think Shlomo said, chacham lev. It's awkward because the chokhmah is actually in the brain, not in the heart. But no, when you get to a certain level, then the desire and the lust and all the emotional things, they will be actually become the wisdom, because you enslave them. They are not being controlled by the evil inclination. That's why, for example, you know, there is melech, which is a king, and there is a lemech. Lemech is like a nebech, a person that is not good. So what does it mean? Melech mean moach lev kaved, that the moach is the first, and then the heart, and then the liver. The liver actually is the where the nefesh is. The nefesh is the lower part of the soul. But to be a lemech, which means that the heart is first, lev moach kaved, which means a person is being controlled by his heart, the emotions. So he said, and that's why we need to enslave ourselves by having that mitzvah of the tefillin, the heart and the brain to Hashem. And therefore the tefillin are called also an oath, a sign, right? That everybody see that in the head. And that's like indicating that we are Jews, we're putting tefillin, that we're enslaving to Hashem our thought and the lust and the thought of the heart. And the rest of the body come after that. And therefore the tefillin are called. והנה, and said here, כל ימות השבוע מתקיים עניין זה על ידי התפילין. So during the weekdays, right, you're putting the tefillin every day. But Shabbat Kodesh, what is the sign, the mark that we have, the Ot Shabbat? As it says in Gemara Menachot, יצאו שבתות ויום טוב שאין גופנות. The day itself of Shabbat and the Yom Tov, that's the sign, that's the Ot. Right, as it says in the Sfarim HaKadoshim in the Holy Book, ראשי טובות של Shabbat, right, the acronym of Shin Bet Taf, it's Shabbat במקום תפילין. Saturday instead of tefillin, right? So בשבת כתיב in Shmot, לדעת כי אני השם מקדישכם, right? You should know that I'm Hashem sanctifying you. The Shabbat Kodesh היא מידת הדעת הכוללת מוח ולב, because the Shabbat, it's including that brain, the wisdom and the heart, which have these two things. as it says in Yeshaya, in the Navi, right? Im tashiv v'shaber taglecha, right? Asot chafzecha, right? Az titanag al Hashem. Then you will have a pleasure on Hashem. That on Shabbat we are enslaving all our desires and lust, right? Ta'anugav v'tshukav of his heart to Hashem. As it says in the Zemer, right? Ya echsof Shabbat Kodesh, right? Nafshi cholat avatecha. My soul is have like a lovesick to you. And also in Shabbat, there is also in slavery of the soul of the brain, as it says in the Zohar Kadosh. Shabbat, iu yomad nishmata. The Zohar said that the day of Shabbat, it's like the aspect or the context of the neshama, of the soul, and therefore the Shabbat called Ot, right? As we said the Kiddush, Oti beni ubebnei Israel, Oti leolam, right? That the Shabbat itself is indicating that we are Jewish, we're keeping Shabbat. Baruch Hashem, cannot wait for the Shabbat. It's only Monday, right? And he said, and by doing that and keeping the Shabbat, enslave again the desire and the of the heart and the thought of the heart, together with the soul in the brain and the rest of the senses and the strength, and he's like crowning Hashem on his body. And this is the explanation. This is the request, right? When we say it's like it's a song. Samchem bebinyan shalem. Like make them happy in a complete building or constructing. What is mean binyan shalem? It's not like a skyscraper in Manhattan. It's like perfection in Avodat Hashem. That on Shabbat specifically we can achieve perfection in Avodat Hashem, because it says here, and this is the one of the difficult things to understand. Sheitachen shosek betorah u'masim tovim. It's possible that the person learning Torah, do good deeds, etc., but he doesn't have perfection because he is not giving himself mesirut nefesh, and he's not enslaving his body, his wisdom, his brain, right, and live to Hashem. He's just doing many good things, but still it's not perfect. But having the Shabbat, right, achalei Shabbat Kodesh, יכול לשעבד את עצמו לגמרי להשם יתברך. Because the Shabbat Kodesh is tachlit, that's the purpose of creating heaven and earth. And that purpose is from all the physical things to elevate them into heaven things, right? The spiritual thing, Torah, Tfilah, וכל אלה מרצים שהכל ימסור יהודי להשם יתברך. And also as it says in the song, right? In the Yair Stov, עוד השבת נועם הנשמות והשביעי עונג הרוחות ועד הנפשות. So all of these songs have so many secret and deep meaning. So he said, the Shabbat itself is the pleasure for the soul, for the neshamot, right? And the seventh one, the seventh day, again, Shabbat, it's the pleasure of the ruchot, of the spirits, the neshot. So we learn it many times, like we have 5 parts in a neshama. And neshama is not only one. Neshama is only one part, right? We have the lower one, which is nefesh, neshama, right? Ruach, chaya, yechida. They are all type of level that we are combined from. So in that song is like mentioning specifically the ruchot, which is the spirit, and the nefashot, which is the lower part of the soul, right? And the neshamot, etc. To get pleasure in your love and in your fear. And this is Shabbat Kodesh that we are enslaving us. So tefillin we have during the week, Shabbat Kodesh we have on Shabbat, that's the thing. And the topic here, I'm just going back to the beginning. The question was, why Moshe was so praising these people that went to fight just because they put first the tefillin of hand and then the tefillin of head. And if one single person will do the opposite, then they're not going to return safely from the war. Why? Because they were fighting Midian. Midian was the klipa of the da'at. And that's why the tefillin, we need to enslave our thoughts of the heart and the desire. And only that, after that, we can enslave the brain, which is the neshama. And these people, these righteous people, they must have that, because otherwise they could not fight Midian. Shkoyach.